Peace be with you. The day is finished. The ledger is closed. There is nothing left for you to solve tonight. You have spent the last 16 hours carrying something heavy. Perhaps you do not even know its name, but it sits in your chest. A question that the world cannot answer. A wound the daylight cannot reach. You have seen things today that should not be. You have felt things today that do not fit. There is a splinter in the mind of every thinking person, and tonight we are going to remove it. Tonight we do not look away from the hardest question. We walk straight into it. We sit at the feet of the Angelic Doctor, Thomas Aquinas, and we ask the question that has kept philosophers and saints awake for 2,000 years. If God is good, why is there evil? If God is powerful, why does he permit suffering? If God loves us, why does the innocent child weep? But before we can understand, we must rest. The intellect cannot see clearly when the soul is agitated. Let us order the faculties. Close your eyes. Feel the weight of your body sinking into the mattress, just as a stone settles into the earth. You do not need to hold yourself tonight. The bed holds you. The floor holds the bed. The earth holds the floor. There are many layers of holding between you and the void. Command the senses to darken. You do not need to watch the world to be safe in it. The walls of this room will hold without your supervision. Command the will to resign its post. There is nothing to decide before morning. Command the intellect to be still, not to sleep, but to listen. The mind that seeks to fix the world, let it rest. Tonight we do not fix. Tonight we understand. Imagine you are in a stone library. It is the year 1265, the monastery of Santa Sabina in Rome. The corridors are cold and long and smell of stone dust and tallow smoke. You climb a narrow staircase, your hand trailing the wall. At the top, a door. You push it open. The room is small and warm. A fire burns low in the corner. Shelves of manuscripts line every wall, reaching to the ceiling. At the center, a single heavy desk, and there, bent over a vast page of parchment, writing by the light of 2 candles, is a large, quiet man. His face is round and still. His eyes are dark and deep. They are the eyes of someone who has seen all the way to the bottom of a question and found something there. This is Thomas Aquinas. He looks up. He sees you. He does not speak. He simply gestures to the chair beside him. Sit down. We have much to discuss. Thomas sets down his quill. He folds his large hands on the desk. He looks at you with those deep, quiet eyes, and he says, "Tell me what troubles you." You know the question. Everyone who has ever lain awake at night knows the question. It comes in many forms. Why did my father suffer before he died? Why did the flood take the children? Why does the wicked man prosper while the good man weeps? Why, if there is a God who is all-powerful and all-loving, does he not simply stop it? Thomas nods slowly. He has heard this question before. He heard it in the lectures of Albert the Great. He read it in the arguments of the Manichaeans, who said the universe was a battleground between 2 equal powers, good and evil, locked in eternal combat. He read it in the anguished pages of Augustine, who spent years trying to answer it before he found his peace. Thomas knows this question is not merely philosophical, it is personal. It is the wound beneath all wounds. It is the question that sits between the human soul and God like a locked door. He picks up his quill. He does not dismiss the question. He does not say, "Do not ask such things." He writes it at the top of the page, in large letters, "Does God exist? Does evil exist?" He places them side by side, because Thomas says these 2 questions must be answered together. They are the 2 edges of the same blade. Before we can understand why evil exists, Thomas says, we must understand what evil is, And here is where the modern mind makes its first mistake. The modern mind thinks of evil as a thing, a substance, a force, a dark power that flows through the world like a river of poison. The Manichaeans thought this. The Gnostics thought this. Even today, many people unconsciously believe it. Thomas looks at the candle between you. "Watch," he says. The flame burns. It is bright. It is warm. It is actual. Now imagine the flame goes out. What remains? Darkness. But what is darkness? Thomas asks this slowly, letting the question settle. Darkness is not a thing. Darkness is the absence of light. You cannot put darkness in a jar. You cannot weigh it. You cannot manufacture it in a forge. Darkness has no existence of its own. It only exists as the privation, the taking away of light. Evil, Thomas writes, is like darkness. Evil is the privation of good. This is not wordplay. This is one of the deepest insights in the history of philosophy. Evil is not a thing that exists alongside good. Evil is the absence of a good that should be there. A blind eye is not evil because it has some evil substance in it. It is disordered because it is missing something it should have. Sight. A rotting tree is not evil because evil matter has entered the wood. It is corrupted because it is missing integrity, health, the fullness of what a tree should be. Think of a wound in your hand. What is the wound exactly? It is not a thing you could remove and hold in your palm. It is an absence of skin, of wholeness, of the integrity the hand should have. The wound hurts not because something evil has been added, but because something good has been taken away. Augustine discovered this before Thomas, and it brought him to his knees. He had searched for the substance of evil for years, believing it must be some dark matter, some opposing force to God. And then he saw it. There is no such thing. Evil has no nature. Only good has nature. Only good has being. God did not create evil. God cannot create evil, because evil is not a creation. It is a corruption. It is a hole in the fabric of good. Let your body soften as you hear this. Let your shoulders drop. There is no dark empire competing with God for your soul. There is no equal and opposite power. There is only the good, and the falling short of the good, the wound, and the wholeness that has been lost. This does not make the wound less painful, but it means the wound is not ultimate. The wholeness came first. The wholeness is the reality. The wound is the absence of reality. Thomas dips his quill. He draws a line down the center of the page. 2 columns. He labels them in his careful script. On the left, the evil of pain, suffering, the flood, the earthquake, the illness, the loss. This is what philosophers call natural evil. The suffering that comes not from human choice, but from the structure of the world. The child sick with fever, the village swept by the storm, the body that ages and fails. On the right, the evil of fault, sin, the cruelty of one person toward another, the lie, the betrayal, the violence, the indifference of the powerful to the suffering of the weak. This is what philosophers call moral evil, the suffering that comes from the misuse of human freedom. Thomas says, these are not the same problem. They require different answers. Let us take the harder one first. Let us take the evil that comes from human hands. In the library, the fire pops. A log shifts. Thomas turns to face you fully. Why does God permit the murderer to raise his hand? Why does he not simply stop the violence before it lands? Thomas writes one word: liberty, freedom. To understand this, you must understand what love requires. Think of what it would mean for God to create beings who were incapable of choosing evil, beings whose every action was good, not because they chose good, but because they could not choose otherwise. Beings who loved God not because they turned toward him freely, but because they were constructed to do so, like a compass needle pointing north. Would this be love? Thomas asks. Is it love when the compass needle points north? The needle has no choice. There is no gift in a movement that cannot be withheld. Love that cannot be refused is not love. It is mechanism. It is clockwork. It is the turning of a gear. For God to create beings capable of love, he had to create beings capable of refusal. For God to create beings capable of turning toward him, he had to create beings capable of turning away. The same freedom that makes love possible makes sin possible. The same will that can say yes to God can say no. This is not a flaw in the design. This is the design. Because the alternative, a universe of beautiful mechanisms, perfectly ordered, incapable of love, would be a universe without the one thing God was trying to create. Thomas writes, God permits evils to occur so that goods may be drawn from them. This is not cruelty. This is the logic of a world in which freedom is real. Every act of genuine heroism requires the possibility of cowardice. Every act of genuine mercy requires the existence of cruelty to be merciful toward. Every martyr requires a persecutor. The gold of human love is refined in the fire of genuine risk. Let your breathing slow, in and out. This does not make the violence less terrible. Thomas is not saying that evil is secretly good. He is saying something more precise, that a world without the possibility of evil would be a world without the possibility of love, and God chose love. God risked the wound to make the embrace possible, but you shift in your chair, there is still a knot in the chest. Because the hardest cases are not the cases of the guilty suffering for their sins, the hardest cases are the innocent, the child, the one who did nothing, the one who did not choose anything. Why does God permit the suffering of the innocent? Thomas is quiet for a long moment. He does not reach for a quick answer. He lets the question breathe. Then he opens a different manuscript, the book of Job. He reads aloud, slowly, in Latin. Job, who was blameless and upright. Job, who feared God and turned away from evil. And yet, the loss of his children, the loss of his wealth, the loss of his health, his body covered in sores, his friends telling him he must have sinned, that suffering is always deserved, that God is a precise accountant of moral debts. And Job refusing to accept this. Job crying out, not giving up, not turning away, but demanding an answer. Thomas says, Job's friends were wrong. The assumption that all suffering is punishment is false. Thomas is clear about this in the Summa. Natural evil, the suffering that comes from illness, from flood, from death. This is not God punishing individuals for their sins. This is something else entirely. He gestures to the window. Outside, the Roman night, a city built and rebuilt on ruins. He says, look at the world. It is a world of becoming, a world in which things are not yet complete, a world in which the grain must be ground before it becomes bread. The grape must be crushed before it becomes wine. The iron must enter the fire before it becomes a sword. Suffering, Thomas says, is not always punishment. Sometimes it is formation. Sometimes it is the fire in which the soul discovers what it is made of. He turns to Augustine again. Our heart is restless, Thomas quotes softly, until it rests in thee. The suffering of this life, the ache that never quite goes away, the sense that something is missing even when everything is present. This is not a mistake. This is the shape of a desire that the world cannot fill. We were made for an end beyond this world, and the suffering of this world is, in part, the pressure of that destiny against the limits of our present life. Thomas writes carefully, God draws straight lines with crooked sticks. He does not cause the crookedness, but he uses it. The wound becomes the place of healing. The darkness becomes the place where the eyes learn to see a different kind of light. This is not easy to hear. Thomas knows this. He does not offer it as a comfort that costs nothing. He offers it as a truth that has been purchased at great price. Let your body sink deeper. Let the question be held rather than solved. Not every wound has a visible answer in this life. Thomas knows this. Job knew this. The answer God gave to Job from the whirlwind was not an explanation. It was a presence. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? It was the revelation of a mind so vast that the suffering which seems random to us is held within a wisdom we cannot yet see. The candles are burning lower now. The fire in the corner has settled to coals. Thomas is quiet for a long time. Then he does something unexpected. He does not reach for a philosophical text. He reaches for a crucifix on the corner of his desk. He holds it in his large hands. He looks at it the way a man looks at something that has cost him everything and given him everything in return. He says, "The final answer to the problem of evil is not a philosophical argument. It is a historical event. The Son of God entered the world. He did not enter it as a king, protected from suffering. He entered it as a child, born in poverty. He grew in a world of Roman occupation, of disease, of injustice. And then he did the most extraordinary thing. He did not wave evil away with a gesture. He entered it. He took the full weight of human suffering into his own body. The betrayal, the abandonment, the false accusation, the torture, the execution. He did not exempt himself. He was not above it. He descended into it, all the way to the bottom. Thomas writes, God permitted the greatest evil that has ever occurred, the murder of the Son of God, in order to bring forth the greatest good that has ever occurred, the redemption of every human soul. This is not just comfort. This is the logic of providence extended to its ultimate expression. The cross is the proof that God does not stand outside suffering and observe it. He stands inside it and transforms it. The suffering of this life is not the last word. Thomas, who had read Aristotle until his eyes ached, who had built the most rigorous philosophical system of the medieval world, this man knelt every day before the Eucharist and said, "All my works are straw compared to what I have seen. The arguments are good. The arguments are true, but they point towards something the arguments themselves cannot contain. A God who is not just the answer to the problem of evil, but the one who bore it. Let your eyes close more deeply. Let your breathing slow to the rhythm of sleep. Whatever has wounded you, it is held. Whatever evil you have witnessed or suffered, it is not the end of the story. The story has an ending that has already been written, and the ending is not darkness. The ending is light so bright that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing to the glory that is to be revealed. Let the truths settle into your soul like stones settling into the earth. Evil is not a substance. It is a privation, a wound, a hole in the fabric of good. It has no ultimate being. It is parasitic on the good it corrupts. God did not create it, and it does not have the last word. Moral evil exists because love requires freedom. The same will that can embrace God can refuse him. The same heart that can love can harden. God chose the risk because he chose the love. And love is worth the risk. Not all suffering is punishment. Some suffering is formation. The fire that refines the gold does not hate the gold. The pressure that shapes the diamond does not despise the diamond. You are being shaped for something you cannot yet see. God does not observe suffering from a safe distance. He entered it. He bore it. He transformed it from within. The cross is the proof that no depth of human suffering is beyond the reach of divine love. The story is not finished. The suffering of this life is the middle of the story, not the end. The end has already been secured. Thomas, who had thought harder about these questions than almost any human being in history, believed this with his whole soul. And in the end, he laid down his pen and said, "It is enough. Let your mind stop working now." Thomas sets down his quill. He closes the manuscripts. The candles gutter in a draught from the corridor. The fire settles to its final warmth. The library is quiet. The questions are held, if not fully answered. And in the holding, there is a strange peace. The peace that passes understanding, not the peace of having solved everything, the peace of being held by one who has. The walls of the fortress are thick. The storm cannot reach you here. You are inside. You are safe. The question of evil has been faced. It has not destroyed the faith. It has deepened it. God exists, not despite the suffering, through it, in it, beyond it. He is closer to you than you are to yourself. He is the reason you exist at this very second. He knows the wound. He bore the wound. He heals the wound. And he is holding you right now, in this moment, in the dark, as you breathe and rest and let go of the day. Sleep now, in the knowledge that evil does not have the final word. Sleep now, in the trust that your suffering is held by hands that have been pierced. Sleep now, knowing that the darkness is not the destination. Sleep now, as a soul cradled in the providence of God. Sleep now, in the love that descended into the darkest place and came back carrying light. Requiescat in pace. Rest in peace. Good night.